Welcome to the VHIA Weekly Update, episode number 11. I'm Stuart McCullough, I'm the CEO of VHIA. For this week's Industrial Roundup, starting with community health. VHIA has met with the Allied Health Professionals Union on the 17th of March to discuss their log of claims for standalone community health. A key part of that discussion was to talk about the environment in which standalone community health is currently operating, and in particular the fact that the circumstances in which community health operates are now changing radically over the next couple of years, particularly with regards to the effects of My Aged Care and NDIS. The parties will be working through a spreadsheet that sets out those claims and providing updates to members on a regular basis. We'll be having the same discussion with the Health Workers Union with regards to health and allied employees. It's vitally important as we move into enterprise bargaining in 2017 that unions are aware that the circumstances in which community health operates have radically changed and are going to continue to change over the next couple of years. With respect to acute care, we are still conducting our regional forums. In particular, we'll be in Bendigo on the 22nd of March and Wangaratta on the 23rd of March. It's a great opportunity that we look forward to in terms of engaging with our members in a much more direct manner. In terms of the issues that we're presently working on arising from that the reference group process, in particular we're paying attention to the family violence clause and developing a guide that will be the subject of consultation with members, as well as requests for flexible work arrangements, and the long service leave with respect to casuals under the nurses agreement is also a subject that members are raising with us consistently, so we're working through that. We hope to have materials to report back on for the April round of VHIA managers meetings. That's all for this week for the Industrial Roundup. Welcome to the VHIA Weekly Update discussion, where we go in depth with a particular subject. Joining me this week is Principal Industrial Relations Consultant Tim Nagel. Welcome, Tim.
It's Daniel, not Tim.
Tim/Daniel, could you do the honours and present this week's subject? So for those people who are listening rather than watching, could you describe what it is you see?
I'm unsure of what I'm looking at.
Well, congratulations, Daniel, on making me feel exceptionally old. That is Lou Reed. Lou Reed was a member of the Velvet Underground, and in 1973 he produced an album called Berlin. Berlin, of course, being about the city that was then divided into two distinct parts, which brings us to today's subject, which is the Health and Allied Services Managers and Administrative Workers Agreement, an agreement which is divided into distinct sections.
Thanks, Tim.
So just in terms of the agreement, remind those people who are listening and watching when this agreement came into operation.
So the agreement came into operation on the 15th of December 2016, and it's been in place since.
And what changes were effective from the commencement of the agreement that health services are having challenges working through at the moment?
So one of the immediate changes was, of course, the wages increase. The wages increase was applied back to the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2016. And for those of you that are listening and watching, you'll otherwise know of that as the VHIA, which isn't the town in New Zealand where Lord of the Rings was filmed. It is the acronym for first full pay period on or after.
It could be next door to the town in which Lord of the Rings was filmed, and we shouldn't rule that out.
It could very well be, but it is the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2016.
One of the features of this round of agreements has been that there have been sometimes lump sum payments as well. Is there a lump sum payment in this instance?
There was $1,561 of a once-off lump sum payment was made, and it was prorated for part-time employees, and it's for those employees that were employed at the start of that agreement. So they had to have been employed at the 15th of December 2016.
So it's a point-in-time determination as to whether someone is eligible.
That is correct.
And in terms of some of the changes that arise from this new agreement, obviously one of the obvious changes is that it covers Health and Allied Services employees and managers and administrative workers. It does not cover allied health professionals. They're in a separate agreement. But in terms of some of the clauses, what are some of the key differences?
Some of the feedback we've received from members is some challenges around the assessment of part-time review of hours, and this is a clause that exists in this agreement, and the members are unsure about how to apply that entitlement. The entitlement's provided where an employee can demonstrate that they have over a greater than 12-month period a regular and systematic pattern of employment where they've been filling shifts that aren't vacancies that are attributed to an absence. So these vacancies have to be, for lack of a better term, some vacant EFT that hasn't been recruited to, that the employee is filling on a regular and systematic basis over a period of 12 months.
So it's really a mechanism to ensure that what's happening is a question of fact, matches up with the contract of employment.
That's correct. It is important to note, however, that an employee can rely on employment that occurred prior to the commencement of this agreement to substantiate a claim for part-time review of hours.
So this is a clause that comes into operation with the agreement on the 15th of December 2016, not 12 months after.
Correct.
And what are some of the other features of this particular agreement?
Another clause that has been causing some challenges within our membership is the casual conversion clause. The casual conversion clause is which provides similar entitlements to the part-time review of hours provision, except it's applied over a 6-month period, not a 12-month period. Again, the employee has to be working on a regular and systematic basis over a 6-month period and working shifts that don't belong to someone else. They have to be filling vacant EFT, not absences pertaining to annual leave, maternity leave or long service leave.
I think one of the interesting things about that provision is that a request for conversion can be made either by the employee or the employer.
That's correct.
The agreement also has within it some provisions that are found in other agreements, albeit in a slightly different form. I'm thinking particularly of things like consultation, discipline and family violence leave.
Correct. And in addition to that, there's a clause with respect to flexible working arrangements, which is an entitlement that's applied previous to this agreement, but the existence of the clause and the promotion of that clause throughout the implementation of the agreement has resulted in an increased incidence of claims from employees for flexible working arrangements. The VHIA are developing tools across the health sector and will assist the health sector in consistent advice across not just this agreement but across the entirety of the new agreements that are being released both last year and this year.
Certainly flexible work arrangements is something that's come up at our overarching reference group as a priority area, that people are receiving more requests. I think one of the interesting things about flexible work arrangements is that ability has been there for many years. But just to ensure that people don't think of requests for flexible work arrangements as being a binary proposition of either yes or no, there really is a lot of scope, I think, for employees to consult and negotiate together to come up with a mutually satisfactory arrangement that meets the needs of both parties.
That's correct.
And just in terms of the ongoing work that's going to be required of this agreement during 2017.
So the VHA have continued the EBA reference group that existed throughout the bargaining process.
That's a change from our previous practice where we used to disband them.
Correct. We're welcoming the participation of metropolitan, rural and regional members. There is an opportunity during those forums to share ideas and solutions and share challenges which will inform the VHIA on providing sector-wide advice. In addition to that, the meetings will provide meetings on both a face-to-face facilitation but also utilising GoToMeeting, which has been a tool which allows for our rural and regional participants especially to be able to sit in front of their own computers within their workplaces in their rural and regional areas and still observe the VHA office, observe the participants that often attend in person from our metropolitan hospitals and see the faces of VHIA and discuss their challenges.
So just in terms of those reference groups, I think a really important point is that people aren't voted onto those reference groups, they volunteer. And it's not too late to volunteer.
Correct. We're seeking participation throughout the ongoing EBA reference group process. You may wish to participate on a frequent basis, or you may wish to participate leading up to some major changes which we'll touch on shortly.
Now, other members who aren't participants in that reference group, though, will still receive updates as to the activities of that group. They'll do that obviously through the monthly HRIR report, but also the community app.
Correct, and that moves us on to the next point with respect to the VHA Community app. I'd like to encourage our metropolitan, rural and regional members to ensure they've got their VHA Community app downloaded onto their phone or have a link on their browser, have got access to the app themselves and subscribe especially to the Health and Allied EBA, which will allow them to share information between themselves and other members and the VHIA.
So just in terms of, given that we're talking about events for 2017, when is the next wage increase due?
The next wage increase, which is a 3% increase to wages and allowance, is due on the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October this year.
So Daniel, tell me what's happening with regards to nauseous allowance under this agreement.
So the previous agreement provided for an allowance where a Health and Allied staff member was engaged in handling of linen that was nauseous in nature, or were exposed to work that was unusually dirty or offensive, having regard to the work ordinarily performed by an employee in that classification. The new agreement provides at Clause 40 an entitlement to 2 payments of $700 on the first full pay period on or after the 1st of May 2017 and the 1st of May 2018. But that payment will only be made to staff within a specific group of classifications, and that group of classifications is provided at Clause 40 of the new EBA. This arrangement will result in some staff receiving this lump sum nauseous allowance payment where they ordinarily may not have received it in the past, having regard to the work they ordinarily perform at their health service. However, there may be some staff that may be receiving greater than $700 per annum in nauseous allowance, but will now only receive the lump sum payment and no further payment beyond those 2 lump sum dates.
So the key thing with regards to nauseous is the allowance as an allowance ceases, and people receive instead a lump sum, and the people who do receive it are the ones who are listed in Clause 40.
That's correct.
And just in terms of the other key issue, I think that members are keen to understand the transition provisions for clerical workers and the management admin structure.
That's a transition that will be occurring on the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2017. And that will result in your clerical staff, so your WC staff, transitioning to your management and admin structure, so the classifications that start with a HS. What will occur is your clerical worker Cs will transition to a new classification called HS1A, or Management and Admin Grade 1A. Your clerical worker Bs will transition to a classification which is the HS1, which is the Management and Admin Grade 1, and your clerical worker As will transition to the HS2 classification, which is the Management and Admin Grade 2 classification.
And just in terms of the fact that that's occurring later in 2017, what can members expect to receive to support that transition?
We'll be providing further guidance to our membership in the coming months to assist in the preparation of this transition.
And just in terms of the multi-skilling allowance, what's happening there?
So health services and our members would note that the allowance was paid in 2014 and 2015. However, the previous agreement didn't facilitate a payment of this allowance in 2016. It's been negotiated that employees that are classified as food and domestic services assistants and patient services assistants will receive $1,000, and that'll be paid on the first full pay period on or after the 13th of November 2017, and another $500 to be paid on the first full pay period on or after the 13th of April from 2018 and each year thereafter, noting that that payment is part-time pro rata and excludes casual employees.
So we've covered off 2017, but one of the interesting features of this particular agreement is the degree to which the events under it are spread out over the life of the agreement. What's happening in 2018?
One of the changes that's occurring in 2018 is the transition of the interpreter structure across to the management and admin structure, and that will occur from the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2018. This is detailed in Clause 85 of Section 3 of the agreement.
And with respect to dental nurses?
Again, from the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2018, the dental nurse structure will translate to the dental assistant structure. And that's detailed in Clause 98 of Section 2. Following this change in late 2018, badge allowance will be discontinued.
We don't need no badges?
Don't need no badges.
And in terms of instrument and theatre techs, I understand that that's also subject to a process in 2018.
Correct. Again, from the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2018, instrument and theatre technicians will have an adjusted structure which will recognise their experience and their contribution to the instrument and technician fields within the health services. These are detailed in Clause 100 and Clause 101 of Section 2 of the agreement.
And we have a new description for some existing classifications in terms of the healthcare worker structure. What's that about?
That's correct. Again, from the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2018, employees classified as nursing assistants will be reclassified as personal care worker grade 1, and then following that reclassification, all employees that are classified as personal care workers will be retitled as healthcare workers, and this is detailed in Clause 99 of Section 2 of the agreement.
And probably the other thing I'm mindful of are the changes to wage scale group 1, which has always been very close to the award wage.
That's correct. These are the staff that are some of the lowest paid in the agreement, and what will occur on the first full pay period on or after the 1st of October 2018 is those employees engaged in the classifications that are detailed in Clause 102.1 of Section 2 in the agreement will experience an additional salary increase that's above the ordinary EBA increase experienced by staff covered by the agreement.
So effectively that rate at wage scale group 1 is something that you move through as opposed to remain there for the entirety of your employment.
That's correct.
And just in terms of where we're up to with respect to an implementation plan, I understand that we do need to go back to the drawing board a little bit.
That's correct. So we sought feedback from our membership with respect to a draft implementation plan that was sent out to our membership. That's resulted in some changes that we are currently changing within the document, and we'll be reissuing that to membership in the next couple of weeks.
I understand we also got some valuable feedback from the HWU with regards to the need to recast that document. So we'll be redoing that work and reissuing that or issuing that to members before too long.
Correct.
And Daniel, in terms of the progress of that implementation plan, how can members keep up to date with the latest information as to the progress of that implementation plan?
The most effective way to keep informed is being registered within the VHIA community app and registering your interest in subscribing to the Health and Allied page within the VHIA community app.
So you need to get onto the VHIA community app and select that group, and then you'll receive all the updates that are relevant to the Health and Allied Managers and Administrative Workers Agreement.
Correct.
Thank you for joining me today, Daniel.
Thank you, Stuart.